The night of the orphans, the wind howled across the empty fields. Like a wild animal searching for prey, snowflakes swirled under the dim streetlights of the small farming town, landing softly on rusted fences and frozen soil. In a corner of the town, just beyond the last row of houses, stood a small, weathered workshop. Its tin roof rattled every time the wind struck. Inside, the warm glow of a single lamp lit the hands of Ethan Cole, a mechanic who had lived there all his life. Ethan was hunched over the engine of an old tractor, tightening bolts with the steady patience of someone used to fixing what others had already given up on. The clock on the wall showed it was nearly midnight, but he kept working. Winter was harsh here, and the farmers depended on their machines to survive. As he wiped grease from his hands, a faint sound broke through the whistle of the wind. It was soft at first, almost like the mewing of a kitten. He paused, listening. There was again a weak, shaky sob. Ethan frowned, grabbed his coat, and stepped outside. The cold hit him instantly, biting through the fabric. His boots crunched on the snow as he followed the sound around the side of the workshop. That's when he saw them, two small figures huddled together in the shadow of a stack of old tires. Their clothes were torn and soaked, their hair plastered to their heads with melting snow. One was slightly taller, maybe 12 years old, holding the smaller one perhaps 8 clothes, as if shielding her from the night itself. Ethan's heart clenched. "Hey," he called gently, crouching down. "Are you all right?" The taller girl looked up, her eyes wide and shining in the dim light. There was something strange about them, a faint, soft glow, but before he could think about it, she pulled her sister closer and said nothing. "It's freezing out here," Ethan continued, his voice calm, like he was speaking to a scared animal. "Come inside. I've got a heater and some food." They hesitated. The younger one's lips trembled as she whispered something in a language Ethan didn't recognize. The older girl nodded to her, then slowly stood, still holding her sister's hand. Inside the workshop, the warmth hit them, and the scent of machine oil mixed with the faint aroma of soup from the small stove in the corner. Ethan pulled out 2 chairs and gestured for them to sit. He filled the bowls with steaming vegetable soup and placed them in front of them. At first, they only stared at the food. The older one glanced at Ethan, her expression almost cautious, as if she were testing whether it was safe. Finally, she picked up the spoon and took a small sip. The younger followed, and within seconds, they were eating like they hadn't seen food in days. Ethan watched in silence, feeling a deep ache in his chest. "Where are your parents?" he asked softly. The older girl paused, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "Gone," she said finally, her voice quiet and accented, as though the word itself hurt. Something in her tone told Ethan not to press further. Instead, he asked, "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" The older girl shook her head. "You can rest here," he said, already pulling out an extra blanket from the shelf. "It's not much, but it's warm." When they finished eating, Ethan set up a small bed on the old couch by the wall. The younger girl curled up immediately, asleep within minutes. The older one, however, stood for a moment, staring at him. Her gaze was too intense for someone so young. "Why?" she asked suddenly. Ethan tilted his head. "Why what? Why help us?" He smiled faintly. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because no one should be alone on a night like this." She said nothing for a long moment, then gave the smallest nod, as if confirming something in her mind. Before lying down, she whispered something to the younger girl in that same strange language. The younger smiled in her sleep. Then, in perfect English, the older one said softly to Ethan, "We will not forget this, ever." Ethan didn't know what to say. He just nodded and pulled the blanket up around them. Within minutes, they were asleep, their breathing soft and steady. The storm outside grew wilder. Snow hammered against the windows, and the wind screamed through the cracks. Ethan sat back at his workbench, pretending to check his tools, but his mind kept wandering to the 2 girls. Something about them was different. He couldn't explain it. An hour later, when he finally turned in for the night, he checked on them again. They were still there, curled together like the kittens. But when he looked down at the floor, he froze. The snow that had clung to their boots had melted, leaving small wet footprints on the wooden floor. But instead of fading into normal puddles, the prints glowed faintly, as if lit from within. Ethan blinked and rubbed his eyes. The glow was already fading, until there was nothing left but water. He stood there for a long moment, staring at the floor, wondering if it had just been his tired mind playing tricks on him. But deep down, a strange feeling settled in his chest. This night was not the end of something. It was the beginning. 10 years of silence. Each storm passed by morning, leaving the town buried under a thick blanket of snow. Sunlight bounced off the frozen ground, making the whole world seem brighter. But Ethan's workshop still carried the quiet warmth from the night before. When Ethan woke, the couch where the girls had slept was empty. The blanket was folded neatly. The bowls they had used were washed and set upside down to dry. It was as if they had never been there except for one small thing. On the workbench, beside his tools, lay a tiny piece of metal. It was smooth, silver, and shaped like a teardrop, no bigger than a coin. When Ethan picked it up, it felt oddly warm in his palm, even though the workshop was still cold. He turned it over, seeing faint marking symbols that looked like they belonged to no language he knew. He stepped outside, scanning the snow for footprints, but there were none, just the untouched white surface, stretching in all directions. For days, Ethan wondered about the girls. He asked a few people in town if anyone had seen them, but everyone shook their heads. He didn't press to heart somehow. He felt their disappearance was deliberate. The years rolled on. Seasons changed. Crops grew and withered, and Ethan's hair began to show threads of gray. The workshop stayed the same, filled with the smell of oil, the clink of tools, and the faint hum of his old radio playing country songs. But every winter, when snow fell and the wind carried that same howling tone, he would remember that night. The sight of two shivering figures in the dark, the way the older girl had stared at him like she was memorizing his face, and those glowing footprints. The strange silver teardrop never left his workbench. He didn't know why, but he kept it close. Whenever he held it, a strange warmth spread through his hand. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, he thought he heard a faint hum from it, like the low purr of an engine far away. Over the decade, strange things began happening in the countryside. It started with farmers claiming to have seen lights in the sky, silent, fast-moving orbs that zipped from one horizon to the other. Some swore their cattle vanished overnight, only to return to days later unharmed, but different. A few even claimed their livestock's eyes reflected light like glass marbles. Ethan didn't pay much attention to rumors. Life was hard enough without chasing ghost stories. But sometimes, late at night, he'd stand in his doorway and scan the stars. One winter evening, about 10 years to the week since he had last seen the girls, Ethan was fixing the wiring on a generator when the air around him changed. It was subtle at first. The hair on his arm stood on end, and the air seemed heavier. Then he heard it, a low hum, much deeper than the sound from the silver teardrop. The ground trembled, tools rattled on the shelves, and a faint metallic taste filled the air. He stepped outside. The night sky was cloudless, the stars bright, but in the northern distance, a pale blue light glowed. It grew larger and brighter, moving toward him. At first, he thought it was a plane, but planes didn't move without sound. This light was silent, smooth, and far fast. Ethan's heart began to pound. The silver teardrop on his workbench was glowing. The light stopped above his house. The hum deepened until it seemed to shake the very bones in his chest. Then, slowly, shadows formed within the blue glow, resolving into a shape so massive it blocked half the stars. A ship, unlike anything he had ever seen. Its surface shimmered like liquid metal, reflecting the moonlight in waves. Patterns of glowing lines traced across its hull, shifting like living veins of light. A single beam of white light shot down from its underside, bathing the front of Ethan's workshop in brilliance. The air smelled like ozone and electricity, sharp enough to sting his nose. And then, two tall figures stepped out of the light. They moved with the same quiet grace as the girls he remembered, though now they were taller, stronger, and dressed in armor that shimmered with faint, shifting colors. Helmets covered their heads, but as they approached, the helmets folded back like petals, revealing the faces. Ethan's breath caught. It was them, the girls from that night. Only now, they weren't children. Their faces had changed, but the eyes were the same. The older one's lips curved into the faintest smile. "Ethan Cole," she said, her voice clear and calm. "It's time we returned the kindness you showed us." The galactic air evolved. For a long moment, Ethan just stood there, the freezing night air forgotten. The two young women were real, not a dream, not a memory. The same girls he had found in the snow a decade ago, now taller, stronger, and dressed in shimmering armor that looked both ancient and advanced at the same time. Their faces were sharper, wiser, but their eyes, those eyes still held the same strange light he had seen in the shadows of his workshop years ago. The older one stepped forward, her boots making no sound against the snow. The armor she wore shifted in color, as if it were alive, reacting to the cold air. The younger one followed, carrying something in her hand, a sleek, silver staff that glowed faintly at the tip. Ethan's mouth was dry. I thought I'd never see you again. The older woman gave a faint smile. We told you we wouldn't forget. Before Ethan could respond, the hum from above deepened. He glanced upward. The massive ship hung silently in the air, its glowing lines pulsing, like a heartbeat. The sheer size of it was overwhelming. It was as if a piece of the night sky had descended to his small patch of land. He took a step back, but the younger one reached out. Don't be afraid. We're here to thank you. Her voice was softer, warmer, but still carried that strange accent. Thank me, Ethan asked, his mind racing. For soup and a blanket. That was nothing. The older sister shook her head. It was everything. That night, you saved our lives. Without you, we would have frozen, and Earth would already belong to the enemy. The words sent a chill through Ethan that had nothing to do with the cold. The beam of light from the ship expanded, surrounding all three of them. The snowflakes caught in it sparkled like diamonds, and the ground beneath Ethan's feet seemed to fade away. What's happening? Ethan asked, panic creeping into his voice. We're taking you aboard, the older one replied calmly. There's something you must see. Ethan barely had time to react before the world shifted. One blink and the snow, the trees, and his little workshop were gone. He was standing on a vast, gleaming floor made of smooth black glass. The air felt different, thinner, but somehow easier to breathe. A curved wall stretched high above him, lined with tall, glowing windows that looked out into space. He could see planets, moons, and endless stars, so close it felt like he could touch them. Ethan turned in awe, his heart pounding. This is impossible. The younger sister stepped beside him. It's not impossible. You're aboard the Orion's Heart, one of the last ships of the Orion Defense Fleet. Before Ethan could ask questions, dozens of alien crew members moved silently around them. Some had skin like polished stone, others had multiple eyes, and a few were so tall their heads nearly brushed the ceiling. All wore armor similar to the sisters, but none looked at him with the same warmth. The older sister led him toward a raised platform. This ship has been hiding near your world for years, waiting for the right moment. That moment is now. Ethan frowned. The right moment for what? The older one's expression turned serious. Earth is no longer safe. The same enemy who hunted us has found you. They reached a massive table covered in glowing star maps, lines of light marked trade routes, war zones, and safe territories. A cluster of red dots blinked near a small blue sphere, Earth. The younger sister tapped one of the red dots. This is a Vexor scout ship. It entered your solar system 2 weeks ago. Ethan's stomach tightened. And that's bad? The older one gave a single nod. The Vexor do not invade planets quickly. They strip them slowly, taking resources, enslaving people. They will break your world piece by piece. But she glanced at him. You can stop them. Ethan laughed in disbelief. Me? I'm just a mechanic. Exactly, the younger said. You fix things. And there is something ancient, hidden on your planet, that needs to be fixed before it can protect Earth. Only someone with your skills and your unique genetic signature can do it. Ethan blinked. What? The older sister placed the same silver teardrop from his workshop onto the table. Do you know why you kept this all these years? Why it felt warm in your hand? This is a key, Ethan, and you are the only one who can use it. For a long moment, Ethan stared at the small piece of metal. The warmth he felt from it was stronger now, almost alive. Outside the window, the stars shifted as the Orion's Heart changed position. Why me? He asked quietly. The older one's voice softened. Because kindness leaves a mark, Ethan Cole. Even in the coldest parts of the galaxy, it is remembered, and sometimes it is repaid. The hum of the engines deepened, and a warning tone echoed through the vast chamber. A crew member shouted something in a language Ethan didn't understand, but the urgency was clear. The younger sister turned to him. The Vexor know you're here. We don't have much time. The dead of the stars room seemed to shrink around Ethan as the alert continued to pulse in the background. The glowing red lights on the star map spread like drops of ink in water, each one representing an enemy ship closing in. The older sister turned to him, her expression calm but sharp. Ethan, we don't have much time. You must understand why. We came back. Ethan shook his head. still gripping the silver teardrop key in his hand. I don't understand any of this. 10 years ago, you were just two kids lost in the snow. The younger sister stepped forward, her voice softer. We're not lost. We were hiding. Our ship had been destroyed, our people scattered. You found us on the coldest night of our lives, and you gave us warmth. When the galaxy had given us nothing but fear, Ethan swallowed. And now you're telling me I'm supposed to save the planet. The older one's eyes locked on his. Not just the planet. The entire Orion sector depends on it. They led him down a curved hallway line with tall, silver doors. Each one slid open silently as they passed, revealing glimpses of strange alien life, engineers with 6 arms working over glowing machinery, creatures with skin like rippling water, and vast storage rooms filled with crystalline weapons. Finally, they entered a smaller chamber lit only by a single column of golden light. Floating in the center of the beam was a sphere, ancient, cracked, and covered in the same strange markings as the teardrop key. This, the older sister said, is the celestial core. It was built thousands of years ago by the first Orion kings to protect entire worlds from attack. It can create a barrier strong enough to turn away any fleet. Ethan studied the cracks running through the sphere. Looks like it's broken. That's why we need you, the younger one said. Where we examined Earth's records, we discovered something unexpected. Your genetic code is compatible with the core's control system. No one else we found can repair and activate it. You're the only one. Ethan let out a short laugh, but it was humorless. So you're saying I'm supposed to fix an alien superweapon? I've never even left my hometown. You fixed a tractor with a broken engine block and no spare parts, the older sister said firmly. You made it run for 5 more years. If you can do that, you can do this. Ethan stepped closer to the core. As he did, the silver teardrop in his hand began to vibrate, a faint hum growing stronger. The cracks in the core pulsed faintly, as if it were aware of him. He hesitated. What happens if I fail? The older one didn't soften her answer. Then Earth will fall, and after that, every world in the Orion sector will follow. Her words hung heavy in the air. Ethan looked at both sisters. For a moment, he saw them not as alien warriors, but as the same frightened children who had sat in his workshop a decade ago, their hands trembling around a bowl of soup. You said you wouldn't forget, he murmured. We haven't, the younger said, and now it's our turn to protect you. Before Ethan could reply, the golden light around the core flickered. A voice echoed through the chamber, sharp, urgent, and speaking in a language Ethan didn't know. The older sister's eyes narrowed. They're here, she said. The floor beneath them shuddered as distant explosions rattled the walls. The hum of the engines deepened into a low roar. The younger sister moved to Ethan's side. We can't run forever. The Vexor will chase us to Earth. If the core is not activated before they arrive, there will be no way to stop them. Ethan glanced once more at the glowing sphere. His palms were sweaty. His heart was pounding. But he tightened his grip on the teardrop key. All right, he said quietly. Tell me what to do. The older sister's lips curved into the faintest smile. The same expression she'd given him before stepping into the snow 10 years ago. First, she said, you'll have to go where no human has ever been. The war he never knew. A Booth ship's corridors echoed with the deep thrum of its engines. A steady heartbeat that matched the tension in the air. The older sister, Alira, walked ahead with purposeful steps, her silver armor glinting under the ship's dim lights. The younger one, Sira, stayed close to Ethan, almost as if she were guarding him. They moved quickly, passing crew members who spoke in urgent tones, their alien voices sharp and clipped. Every so often, the walls trembled with the distant impact of weapons. Somewhere far above, the Orion's heart was already under attack. Ethan tried to keep his voice steady. So, where exactly are we going? To the core's cradle, Alira answered without turning around. It's on a hidden world called Kavara Prime. The core was forged there, in the heart of a dying star. Only in its cradle can it be fully repaired. Kavara Prime, Ethan muttered. Never heard of it. You wouldn't have. Sira said softly. It's been erased from every map in the galaxy. Even the Vexor don't know where it is. They entered a wide chamber, filled with glass panels and silver control stations. A massive viewport stretched before them, showing the blackness of space. In the distance, Ethan saw them, tiny, sharp specks of light moving fast. Alira pointed. Vexor scouts. They're testing our defenses. Ethan swallowed hard. And if they get through, they won't, Alira said. But her tone made him wonder if she was reassuring him or herself. She tapped a glowing panel, and the image outside shifted, stars blurred, stretching into lines as the ship jumped into fold space. The hum deepened into a strange, layered vibration that made Ethan's bones feel heavy. The jump ended with a flash. Outside, the stars looked different, brighter, colder. In the center of the view loomed a massive red star, its surface boiling and sending out long arcs of fire into the blackness. Orbiting close to it was a small, metallic-looking planet, shining like a polished stone. Kavara Prime, Sira said, almost in a whisper. The ship descended toward the planet. As they drew closer, Ethan saw that it wasn't like Earth at all. The surface was covered in hexagonal metal plates, each one larger than a city. Rivers of glowing energy flowed between them like molten light. When they landed, the airlock opened with a hiss. The heat hit Ethan instantly, heavy and dry. The ground beneath his boots felt solid but hummed faintly, as if something deep inside the planet was alive. They led him to a huge open structure, more like a cathedral than a workshop, its walls carved with intricate alien symbols. In the center sat the celestial core's cradle, a massive circular platform surrounded by floating rings of metal. Ethan stepped closer. The core hovered above the cradle, glowing faintly through its cracks. The silver teardrop in his hand vibrated harder, pulling him toward it like a magnet. Sira handed him a set of delicate, glowing tools. "These will respond to your thoughts," she said, "but you must be careful. The core is aware." "Aware?" Ethan asked, glancing at her. "It will recognize you," she said simply, "and if it rejects you, it will destroy itself." He took a deep breath, stepping up to the core. As soon as his hands touched it, a wave of heat spread through him, but it wasn't painful. It was like standing in the sun after a long winter. Images flashed in his mind, starfields, alien cities, battles fought in the dark between worlds. And somewhere in those visions, he saw the sisters as children, hiding in the snow, their eyes full of fear. The voice in his head was not human. It was deep, layered, and endless. "You carry the mark of mercy. You may begin." Ethan worked slowly, guided by instinct more than knowledge. The glowing tools floated and spun, sealing cracks and repairing ancient circuits. The rings around the core began to spin faster, sending waves of light across the cradle. But then, alarms blared through the cathedral. Alira's voice was sharp. "The Vexer have found us." Sira ran to the entrance. "They must have tracked the jump signature. They're coming in fast." Ethan's heart pounded, but he kept working. The core's glow grew brighter, its hum louder. The silver teardrop dissolved into the core, merging completely. Outside, the ground shook as explosions echoed across Kavara Prime. The cathedral's walls trembled, dust falling from the high arches. Alira shouted over the noise, "Ethan, how much longer?" "Almost there." He yelled back. The final crack sealed, and the core flared to life, flooding the room with blinding light. The hum turned into a deep, powerful tone that seemed to resonate with the planet itself. The voice spoke, again in his mind. "The shield is yours to command." Ethan turned to the sisters, sweat running down his face. "What now?" Alira's eyes were fierce. "Now, we save your world." The battle for Earth. Orion's heart tore out of fold space above Earth like a blade breaking through water. Ethan had barely caught his breath since Kavara Prime. His hands still tingled from touching the celestial core, and the faint hum of it seemed to echo in his chest below them. Earth looked peaceful, blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. But Ethan knew that peace wouldn't last. Sira's voice cut through the silence. "The Vexer fleet is already here." The view shifted, and Ethan saw them, black, needle-shaped warships emerging from the shadow of the moon. Dozens at first, then hundreds. Their surfaces rippled like living metal, and their formations moved with the precision of a hunting pack. "Are there that many?" Ethan asked, his throat dry. Alira's face was unreadable. "The Vexen never come in small numbers. When they arrive, it means they intend to take everything." The Orion's heart moved into defensive position, but the enemy fleet was faster. Green energy beams lanced through space, striking the Orion shields. The ship shook violently, lights flickering. Crew members shouted orders in a dozen languages. Ethan clutched the armrest of his seat. "What do I do?" Alira turned to him, her voice steady but urgent. "You control the core now. It's connected to this ship. You have to deploy the planetary shield." Ethan's eyes widened. I don't know. You'll." "No," she said firmly. "Trust it. The console in front of him came alive, forming glowing shapes in midair. His hands moved almost on their own, sliding over symbols and patterns that he somehow understood. The core's hum deepened, and a web of golden light spread out from the Orion's heart, growing wider and wider until it formed a shimmery barrier around the entire planet. The first wave of Vexor fire struck it and bounced harmlessly away, scattering into sparks. Cheers erupted from the crew, but Alira didn't smile. This is only the beginning. The Vexor ships adapted quickly. Instead of firing directly, they split into smaller groups, circling the shield. Searching for weaknesses, several of them gathered into a single formation, charging what looked like a massive green beam. Sierra's voice sharpened. There, targeting the shield's anchor point. Here, she tapped a glowing section of the map. Ethan zoomed in. The anchor point was directly above Earth's northern pole. If it was destroyed, the entire shield would collapse. Can we move it? Ethan asked. No, Alira said, but we can defend it if we get there in time. Without hesitation, she gave the order. The Orion's heart shot forward, its massive engines roaring in the void. Vexor fighters swarmed to intercept, their sleek bodies weaving through space like predatory fish. The Orion's guns opened fire, spitting blue plasma bolts that tore through the enemy ranks. But for every fighter destroyed, more appeared. Too many, one crew member shouted. Ethan's gaze fell to the console. An idea formed, reckless, dangerous, but maybe their only chance. What if we overcharge the core, push all its energy into one point? Sierra's eyes widened. That could destroy the core completely. Or it could destroy them, Ethan said. Alira studied him for a second, then nodded. Do it. Ethan closed his eyes, feeling the hum of the core in his chest. He pushed the thought into it. Not words, but intent. The core responded instantly, its glow turning blinding white. Power surged through the ship, making the walls vibrate. The Orion's heart reached the polar anchor point just as the Vexor beam fired. For a split second, the green energy slammed against the shield, and then the core released its stored power. In a massive pulse of golden light, the explosion was silent in the vacuum of space, but Ethan felt it in his bones. Waves of energy rippled outward, sweeping through the enemy fleet. Vexor ships twisted, their black surfaces cracking like dry stone, before shattering completely into drifting debris. When the light faded, the space around Earth was empty. No enemy ships remained. The bridge was silent. Crew members stared at the view in disbelief. Slowly, applause began to spread, mixed with shouts in alien languages. Sierra smiled for the first time in hours. You did it. Ethan let out a shaky laugh. Guess I'm more than a mechanic now. Alira stepped closer, her voice softer. You were always more. You just didn't know it. As the Orion's heart drifted in the quiet aftermath, Ethan looked down at Earth. It seemed smaller now, fragile in the vastness of space, but safe for now. The core's hum was still in his chest, but weaker, almost tired. He knew it wouldn't last forever, and deep inside, he had the unsettling feeling that this war was only the first chapter. The promise-kept stars outside the viewport hung still, like tiny lanterns frozen in a sea of black. The Orion's heart drifted in quiet orbit above Earth, its silver hull glowing faintly under the sunlight. The battle was over. The planet was safe, but the air on the bridge was heavy, as if everyone knew this peace might not last. Ethan stood at the wide observation deck, staring at his home. From here, Earth looked impossibly small, a fragile blue jewel floating in endless space. He pressed a hand to the glass, feeling the faint vibration of the ship's systems. Sierra came to stand beside him, holding something in her hands. It was a small crystal sphere, glowing faintly with golden light. This, she said softly, is a beacon. If you ever need us again, hold it and speak our names. We will come. Ethan took it carefully. The crystal was warm, almost alive, just like the silver teardrop he kept for 10 years. And if you ever need me, he asked with a small smile. Alira stepped forward, her eyes steady. If that day comes, you won't have to wait for a call. You'll feel it. The crew moved quietly around them, preparing the ship for departure, but Ethan lingered, unwilling to step away from the view. He wasn't sure if it was because he didn't want to leave the Orion's heart, or because he wasn't ready to return to his small, lonely workshop on Earth. You could stay, Sierra said suddenly. Serve with us. Travel the Orion sector. See things no human has ever seen. For a moment, Ethan considered it. He imagined alien cities under twin suns, vast deserts on worlds with blue sand, and oceans that sparkled under 3 moons. But then he thought of his workshop, the smell of engine oil, the quiet hum of machines he built with his own hands. He thought of the people in his little town who depended on him. I belong down there, he said finally, nodding toward Earth. Besides, someone has to keep fixing old tractors. Sarah laughed softly. Then you'll be the most important mechanic in the galaxies. They walked with him to the teleport chamber, the same soft white light that had brought him aboard 10 years after their first meeting now waited to take him home. Before stepping into it, Ethan turned back to the sisters. That night in the snow, I didn't save you because I thought I'd get something in return. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Valera's voice was calm, but her eyes held a rare warmth. And that is why we came back. Sarah stepped forward and hugged him, brief but firm. We keep our promises, Ethan Cole. Even across the stars, the light surrounded him, and in the blink of an eye, he was standing in front of his workshop. The snow crunched under his boots, the air sharp and cold. Above him, the night sky was clear, and if he squinted, he thought he saw a faint silver glimmer moving among the stars. Inside the workshop, everything was exactly as he'd left it. The tools, the workbench, even the old radio humming softly in the corner. But now, the crystal sphere sat on his table, glowing faintly. Ethan sat down, turning it over in his hands. He didn't know when, or if he'd ever need to use it, but he knew one thing for certain: kindness, once given, never truly disappears. It echoes, it waits, sometimes. It comes back to you in ways you could never imagine, and somewhere, above, hidden among the stars, that Ryan's heart sailed on, carrying the sisters who would never forget the night a mechanic in a small town gave them soup, warmth, and a reason to hope.